What would I do if I had to rebuild my health from zero? If everything was stripped away, this is where I would begin, at my nervous system. I realized that my body wasn't broken. It was super overwhelmed. And it took me quite a few years to realize that. And there's a lot of background to creating a dysregulated nervous system. It doesn't happen overnight usually. And for me, I started a regular yoga practice when I was about 23. My daughter was about 5 months old. I'd done some yoga before that, but my daughter was 5 months old, and I started going to a 90-minute yoga class once a week. And my teacher was really amazing, and it was Iyengar yoga, so I felt very safe because it wasn't flowing and I needed the structure at that time in my life. And I started doing yoga every day at home. And I started using the breath work from yoga before bed because I was having such a hard time regulating myself with my 2 children and giant dog and house we were renovating and living in a city that felt very busy and having to drive everywhere and being in a relationship that I didn't feel connected to. I didn't feel connected to the person I was in a relationship with. And I was very overwhelmed, and I worked all the time. And I worked in my household too, and I had these moments where I would just fall apart. I would crumble. And it usually happened in the kitchen. It usually happened when my ex-husband was away for a week at school and I was alone and I was working and I was with my 2 kids and I was trying to work in their nap time because I would do massages at our home-based clinic, and I would teach yoga in the evening when my kids were in bed, and again in our home-based clinic. And so I had no time that wasn't full. And when there was time that wasn't filled, I would fill it. I would bake something. I would make homemade gummy bears. I would make homemade Play-Doh. I would make everything from scratch because I needed to fill my time. Because as soon as I stopped, my nervous system would light up and I would feel panicky or anxious or judged that I wasn't doing enough. And so I had these panic attacks where I would just cry on the floor, and I didn't realize that it was a panic attack. I didn't know that this was my body showing me that something was desperately wrong. I just thought I was being emotional and crazy because that is the story that I was told about myself. So I stopped asking what's wrong with me. And instead, I started to figure out what I needed to feel good. How did I feel safe? How did I feel good? How did I feel stable? How did I feel regulated? And so for me, that was dedicated yoga time. That was dedicated meditation time. That was time in the sun, working my garden, playing with my kids without there being like a requirement or something that had to happen, which was a good thing. But my health kind of just kept deteriorating. I kept trying to do everything right. I was eating really well. I was drinking a lot of water. I didn't really drink alcohol a lot. I did with friends. I did socially a little bit, but not by myself, not at home. I had my yoga practice. I had movement practice. I was like safe amounts of time in the sun, all of these things. And I ended up having a tumor removed from my right breast. And it was a tumor that hadn't quite turned cancerous. It was just one of those ones that are kind of on the brink. And that was scary. I felt like I had been doing everything right. And to have this thing happen was destabilizing. Then we were gone 6 months on an adventure. We went to live in Spain on a Spanish island for 6 months. And then when we got back, I ended up having a hysterectomy. Now, partial, my uterus, my fallopian tubes, my cervix were removed because I was slowly bleeding to death because my menstrual cycles were so horrendous. And I had tried countless natural methods to try and stabilize this, and it just didn't work. And I tried everything, and it was really awful. And I was so exhausted, and I looked crazy anemic, and I had nothing to give anymore. I was depleted. So I was recovering from this hysterectomy, and I got a really horrendous secondary infection. And that was scary. And I was on awful antibiotics. And I am all for using the tools we have in the world. I like to support my body as holistically as possible, but when you need antibiotics, you need antibiotics. And I'm grateful then that we have them. And these antibiotics stripped the biome in my body completely. It was a disaster. I couldn't leave my house because I would poop my pants. I literally went to the bathroom 12 to 16 times a day, and I just wasn't getting better. My digestion was a disaster. I couldn't sleep. I was the weirdest sleep cycle I've ever been in my life. I ached all over, and I'd had aches and pains, and my hands were really sore from massage, and my joints were pretty sore, and I had a patch of burning skin on my forearm that would never go away, and I just really felt crappy, just really bad. And so I tried all the supplements, I tried eating better, I tried probiotics and prebiotics, and I tried all of these things. I was making my own kefir, I was making my own yogurt, I was making my own kombucha. I was doing all these things to support my microbiome, and I was still not getting any better. And I was dehydrated because I was pooping it all out. It's I'm not doing well. And I had been watching someone on social media for about 8 months, and she kept talking about this molecular hydrogen water, and I was like, stop it. I was like, this is so much BS. And I kept watching, and I started reading studies, and that's what I do. If I need to know something deeper, I look for someone's testimonial. I look for hundreds of testimonials. I look for papers. I look for published research. I look for everything so that I can feel like I did my due diligence to figure out if this is for me or not for me. And what I found was that this water had never harmed anyone. So I felt like, okay, it's not such a big deal. And I had been spending $500 to $700 a month on supplements to feel crappy. But better than before I was taking the supplements. And I decided to invest in this water ionizer, and it was expensive, and I couldn't really afford it, so I had to get a loan, and I felt very frustrated, but I was like, I need to support my health because I can't live my life like this. I can't be a mom to 2 kids and feel like this. I can't work, I can't give massages, I can't teach yoga, I can't homeschool if I feel like this. So I went from super foggy, super tired, achy, my digestion being a nightmare, not sleeping, to a complete 180. And that's all part of my water health journey, and I'll record a different video about that, but that was a huge step for me. But I also had to learn how to rest. I wasn't very good at that, and I basically had learned and been modeled my whole life to just work. You wake up in the morning, you work through the day, you work at your job, you work at your house, you work with your kids, you work in every way, and then you crash and you go to bed, and then you do it again the next day. And I love my family, and I love my parents, and I have a really solid work ethic, but I didn't have a really solid rest ethic. So I started to take time in the morning for myself to do a meditation and a little workout and a little bit of yoga, and to connect with my body and to really tune in to myself before I moved into my day. And that was the rest that I needed. And in the evening, I would stop sooner, and it became this beautiful gift. I was giving myself, but through giving it to myself, I was giving it to my kids and then my ex-husband also. And when it became a part of my day-to-day to have a healthy sleep routine and a healthy morning routine, and to just feel like it was this beautiful non-negotiable, I started to feel so much more alive in my body, and I started to feel so much more healthy and vital and vibrant, and that made a huge difference in my life. So, did I stop doing anything that helped me heal? Drinking tap water. I stopped drinking tap water. And I stopped shaming myself over needing rest. And I stopped shaming myself for needing space for myself. And I started to, I started to be kind to myself. It wasn't because it was a trend. It wasn't because everyone else is on Instagram and they're all sharing it and they're all doing it. I started doing it because it supported me. It supported my health. It supported my relationship with my kids, my family, my friends. And that's why they stayed, these practices. That's why they remained. I felt better. I finally felt better, and that made it worth it. So now I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. They're not mistakes, they're choices. I make choices every day that support and then don't support my complete and total health. I live as non-toxically as I can. I live in a food economy where the food system is incredibly clean, which I'm really grateful for, and the water is quite clean. And then I have my ionizer and I have my meditation and yoga practices. So I kept the things that fed me and served me, and I released the crazy overjudgment, shaming, critical care of myself, and moved into I am enough, and I've done enough, and I can accept that tomorrow there's more time. This is simply what helped me.